Hi everyone, this is Josh Guttman from Peachtree POCUS, and I'm back to give you another device review. Today, I'll be speaking about a brand new ultrasound company on the market named Neo Medical that I've had a chance to try out, and I'm able to give you an independent review today. This video is sponsored by Neo Medical, but all my videos, my review is based on real world experience and remains focused and practical so you can decide if this device is for you. The Neo device is unique among the other handheld ultrasound devices on the market in that it is in a nice place where it is great for the advanced user who likes to tinker with their own settings, as well as for the beginner user who just wants the presets that they like and doesn't want any of the advanced settings or the advanced settings getting in the way of scanning. I'll show you what I mean when I show you the ultrasound. What this can do that I haven't seen with any of the other machines is to be able to customize a specific preset. For example, if you are using a handheld ultrasound machine that's not Neo or really any other ultrasound machine and you didn't like the obstetric preset, for example, whenever you would choose the obstetric preset, you had to change the gain or the depth or some other aspect of it to make it to your liking. What Neo allows you to do is to create your own specific preset for any mode you want. So you can create your own obstetric preset that you then use to your own liking. It has the ability to edit the settings with more intentions and finesse than I've seen with any other devices. But it's also not overwhelming in that, again, if you're a basic user, it doesn't get in the way to be able to just get the preset in that you want and just start to scan. So its ability to be adopted is great, especially if you are someone with advanced skills and really want to individualize the device to your own use. And I'll show you how they do this. The other thing that's fairly unique is that it has a barcode scanner embedded within the app that utilizes your phone or tablet's camera. So if it's connected to your electronic health record or EMR, it can scan a patient's wristband very easily and pull up all the information and attach it to the ultrasound that you're about to do. And that makes it very easy to do an encounter-based workflow right from the screen. And that's part of the Neo app, which is really great for an efficient workflow. Here are the three transducers. You have the Curvilinear transducer, you have the phased array transducer, and then we have the linear transducer. Neo also has a higher frequency linear transducer, but I only have this regular frequency transducer to show you. These are all wireless and connect directly to a tablet or phone, and I use it connected directly to an iPad. And they charge actually quite nicely with just a regular USB-C charger. So if you have your regular USB-C charger, the same that you would use if you're an Apple user, for example, in using a phone that uses USB-C or an iPad that uses USB-C. I used an iPad for this, uses USB-C. It uses the same charger, so you really only need one type of charger, and it plugs really nicely directly into the back. And they charged fairly quickly and held the charge as well. So you can just plug it in and use that same charger and keep it at your workstation. Now, if you're a more generalist point of care ultrasound user, like an emergency physician like myself, or a family physician, or internal medicine physician, or clinician, and you need multiple different transducer types, having three different transducers can be a hindrance when you need to carry around a bunch of probes. But it was not as much of an issue as I thought it was going to be with these. Since they're wireless and small enough, they all fit nicely into my fanny pack that I use to carry my handhelds on shift without being too heavy. One of the issues generally with wireless ultrasound probes is the connection time takes longer than a wired probe. So it can sometimes take more time than you would like from the time you turn on a probe until you're ready to scan. And this is because wireless probes generally connect via Bluetooth or an internal Wi-Fi and can take a little bit of time and because of that, I consider it a downside of the wireless probes. With the Neo probes, I was actually fairly surprised that though they still took a few seconds to load up, they were actually very quick. In fact, when I was scanning patients in a very busy emergency department, I found that it didn't hinder my workflow at all. I just spoke with the patients as the probe turned on, connected, and then was shortly thereafter ready to scan. So this is probably one of the faster, if not the fastest connection between a wireless probe from turning on to being ready to scan that I've seen with wireless transducers. Let's go ahead and turn it on. We press this button here and it starts to flash. We wait till the flashing is done, till it starts to connect. And once it stops flashing, it's ready to roll. The Neo Medical app, you have over here the app when it turns on. It'll get you straight to the probe list. These are the connected probes. You have the linear, the curvilinear, and the phased array that I showed you at the beginning. If you go into the top right corner is the barcode scanner, or you can do the barcode. And then if you go into the top left corner, you can see the various exams you have. Let's start in the settings. There's lots and lots of different settings that you can use. Ones that really to focus on, firstly, is the voice control that you can set up. This was a little bit finicky and still has some work to be done, but you can turn on allowing it to adjust the gain and the depth, and it has some instructions you can follow directly from here, from the app, freeze, unfreeze, save image, what you can say and what it'll do, how to set it up. And then you can have the Cineloop allow you to change the duration of the Cineloop. So it's 6 seconds, will allow you to go all the way up to a minute. 6 seconds is pretty standard, so we're going to leave it over there. Video recording length, same idea. Auto freeze after a certain amount of time, shutting probe after a certain amount of time, and then for you to send it to a diagram server, work list, etc., to allow you to really integrated it into your clinic or hospital's VNA or PACS, as well as the work list to allow you to integrate it into a robust workflow. So let's get out of there. Go back to those settings. You can go to the exam list, which is where you can see all the exams that you've done. Here's a bunch of different exams that I've saved over a period of time, which I'll show you in a little bit, which will be able to access, be able to view all these images in real time. If you're ready for a new exam, you can start a new exam by either incorporating from the work list. Let's say you want to use this patient information that was put in before. Let's say no. So you can pull off a work list. If it's pulling from your electronic health record or a predefined work list, you can do that. You can put in a patient's information and start an exam that way. Then if you want to go ahead, then after you put in the exam, you can choose the appropriate transducer. So let's start with the curvilinear probe. So just to show you what you have on the screen, if you look at the bottom left, you have your presets. This preset is on abdomen. It'll go to the last one you were on. If you click on there, you can go to the various presets that are built in, but also if you swipe, it allows you to save a specific preset that you like for yourself. And so getting into that, if we look here on the left side, we have the snowflake freeze button. Above it is the save image button. Above that is the save clip button. And above that is the settings button. And this actually can be moved. So if you don't like it over there, you can actually swipe with your finger and move it somewhere else, like over there or anywhere else on the screen. So if you click on that top button with the settings, you can put a body mark if you would like to annotate your screen. Say I put that one, okay. You can also change the settings, and this allows you to save a new preset. You can change the time gain compensation if you would like. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's totally fine because you can just start scanning with those presets. But if you wanted to make your own preset, you can change certain dynamic ranges, frequency, etc. to make a new preset with the advanced settings. Before we start scanning, let's look at some of the other things on the screen. If we look at the top left, that's where we would put in the patient information. If we look at the top right, that's where we would see the details, where we would end the exam. You can also see where the percentage of how much battery is left in the probe. This is 52% left. In the bottom, you have the B mode, color, M mode, pulse wave. So let's start with the right upper quadrant. So let's start with a view of the gallbladder. There's a nice view of the gallbladder. You can change the depth by swiping up and down, which is pretty standard, but always nice to the game. Right and left. If you freeze, you can then look at that settings button, becomes this little tablet button. You can click on that, and then that's where you can put an arrow or measure distances. So if I can measure wall thickness here, for example, and there you go. Then I can save that if I would like. I can unfreeze, and then I can save a clip. I press clip, and then you can see it going for the next 6 seconds. And now it's saving. Okay. Let's zoom out. Let's change it to the fast preset. Here's what a fast exam would look like. Scan through. I can save that clip as it goes, as I fan through the right upper quadrant view. Here's what a left upper quadrant view would look like on that fast preset. And then even if we change the abdominal preset, let's say you like that a little bit better. I tend to like these abdominal presets better than the fast presets. So there, you can fan through here. You can see the detail really nicely. Going on to bladder, just to be able to check a bladder volume. So here's the bladder. You can fan through it. See there's no free fluid. And we can even go on to the bladder preset. And if I wanted to take a bladder volume, I can actually freeze. I go into that tablet button, and then I can actually go down to bladder volume. And I can measure the distances. Distance 1, and then go back there. Distance 2, and then do distance 3, and go ahead and give you a bladder volume. I can save it right there. If you want to look at what the lung looked like with the Curvilinear probe, let's get out of the bladder setting. We'll start with the lung setting. So you can really get nice detail of the lung in the lung setting. Even though it's a curvilinear probe, you can still see the pleura really nicely. And I'm a big fan of the abdominal preset for the lungs. So if you go back to that, you can see that all the pleura really nicely. I can zoom in a little bit. You can see that a little bit better and see the A lines differentiate quite nicely. And even moving down to the base, I can see that diaphragm area really nicely, that there's no pleural effusion, and then getting up into the lung, I can see the pleura really nicely there, and even change to the lung preset if I wanted to get a greater look at the pleura in that area for pneumonias and such. So that's what that looks like, and you can notice here in the top left, it says 5 because I've saved 5 images. And let's say I wanted to end the exam. Let's say that was it. We're going to do some more scanning, but I can then press end, and then I can view a report and put in some comments over here and export, share it, or save it, and everything else I can do for my workflow. Okay, let's move on to the phased array or cardiac transducer. We'll move those buttons over there to that side. Let's start with an apical 4-chamber view, which is typically much better on me. Here's what that looks like. Let's show you some color. And show you some M mode if you're going to do a TAPC. So you can see it really well defined. I'm going to freeze and save that. If you want to do a pulse wave, because you're going to do some diastolic function, you can even change the scale, the sweep speed. So there's pulse wave and velocities. There's even an auto tracing. So we can auto trace. That's what we wanted. I would rather freeze and auto trace so that you can give an auto tracing if you would like, and it gives you some measurements over there, so a little bit more of an advanced cardiac function. It even has the ability to get an ejection fraction. If you go on this advanced setting, you can go on, so not only have your distance, your arrow, you can have the EF by measuring the LIVDD and the LIVDS in order to not overcomplicate things and over-lengthen the video. I'm not going to show you how to do that, but if that is something that you would like to do, it would then calculate the EF for you. So here's a parasternal long axis view. I have a notoriously bad one, especially as I'm talking, but this is actually as good as you get with my parasternal long axis view. And we can do an M mode as if I'm looking for E-point septal separation. Here would be my short axis view. So it all looks really nice, high quality echo views. Moving on to the linear probe, we have our preset set as vascular, and you can see the various presets, carotid, MSK, vascular, small parts that you can use with the vascular probe. So let's start with looking at the IJ and carotid. If you're going to put in a central line and see what that kind of looks like, you can see the nice detail of the sternocleidomastoid. And here we have the IJ below with the carotid. I'm going to make the IJ plump up a little bit. So you can see very nicely if you were putting in a central line, you would be able to see the detail really well. Here I changed the depth just a little bit. I move on to the trachea. Here's the trachea on that side. You can see that really nicely. You can see the detail of the trachea, like though it's on the vascular setting. Let's take a look on the color on the carotid and the IJ. Let's move this out of the way there. You can change the beam steer if we want, just with our fingers. That's very high color gain, so we can turn that down quite a bit there. So we can turn that velocity scale on the advanced settings right there so that it looks nice. So that looks much better. Then we can even steer right on the screen or via the advanced settings like that. So it's got a lot of advanced settings that you can change. Wall filters, color, these are things that on most handheld ultrasounds, you can't get this kind of specific detail. So especially if you're an advanced user, this is really nice. Let's go to an MSK preset. Here's an Achilles. You can take the depth down, and you can see the Achilles move really nicely with that MSK preset. Gives you nice detail of the fibers. Here's the gastroc muscle, again, really nice detail. You take a look at nerves. This is in the forearm. You can see the median nerve right in the middle of the screen right there. Again, if you're doing a nerve block, you can really see the nerve super well. If you wanted to look at the lung in more detail, you can get the lung preset. Here's what the lung looks like with the linear transducer, and you can take the depth down to get really excellent detail. Let's go through some real-life examples of the NeoProbe in action. So you're not just looking at scans on myself, but scans that I've actually done on patients in practice. Let's go through a couple of normals. This is a normal parasternal long axis view, so much better than the one I did on myself. Here's another example of a relatively normal parasternal long axis view where you can really see that detail. Moving into some pathology, here are B lines that you can see right over here in this inner space using the abdominal preset. And in the curvilinear probe, you can see them quite nicely, even without changing the tissue harmonics, which I don't tend to do, but is always an option in the NeoProbe. This is an example of a patient with moderate to large volume ascites. You can see the anechoic fluid around the liver. This was a patient with cirrhosis, so the level of detail is quite nice. This is of that same patient where you can see the liver and fluid even better up there in the right upper quadrant. This was a patient with multiple pathologies. This is a patient who had cholecystitis and underwent cholecystotomy 2 placement was presenting to the emergency department because of ongoing right upper quadrant pain. Her right upper quadrant point of care ultrasound, you can see she's got a large gallstone in the neck with posterior shadowing. We could see really nice detail. You can see the cholecystotomy tube over here that ends in the gallbladder. So if you're wondering about cholecystotomy tube positioning with the neo ultrasound probe, you can tell that it ends right where it should be. And this patient actually also had liver cancer, and you can see the liver mets right here. This is the normal parenchyma of the liver, and you can see that it looks different over here. So those are the multiple pathologies you can see on this single view. Here's the same patient in short axis, where you can see a little bit of the liver pathology, and you can see the cholecystotomy tube as you fan through. Here's a patient that had renal colic. This is a right kidney view, and you can see some mild hydronephrosis right here, some anechoic area right in the renal pelvis for this patient with the renal colic. And just using this neo handheld ultrasound probe, I was able to treat him and send him home with no additional specific imaging other than a point of care ultrasound. This is a patient with a joint effusion right here using the linear probe. I hope you enjoyed this review of the Neo Medical Ultrasound array of devices. As you can see, they're high-quality ultrasound devices that can be incorporated into any environment. If you are considering buying, make sure to check them out. Check out all the other reviews on the Peachtree POCUS YouTube channel, especially if you're looking for a handheld ultrasound device and want to be able to compare different devices and see which one is for you. If you want personalized recommendations, check out our new handheld ultrasound consultation service. We have 2 tiers. One tier where you fill out a detailed form and I get back to you within generally 24 hours with detailed recommendations, including a device recommended purchase, why, and some alternatives and why. And you can check out a sample report on the website. And there's also, too, a higher level white glove service where we actually meet and discuss your specific POCUS needs. I introduce you to company representatives, and I handhold all the way through purchase. It's a really small investment for a purchase that is thousands of dollars, especially when many of the devices do not have a refund policy. And as you can see from this channel, I've tried out many of the devices in real life, in person, and in detail. So you're not going to find many other people who have as much experience as myself, and you'll get those detailed recommendations from me. Check it out at peachtreepocus.com/handhelds. There's a link in the description, and I'll see you on the next video.